All right, so we've got here a correlation causation argument and its strength and accept. And obviously correlation causation is a form of flaw or at least a gap. And so there are lots of ways to problematize that. You could say that there's an alternate possibility or explanation for the correlation and that it's not a causal relationship. You could say there's a third variable causing both. You could say that it's a coincidence and just randomly those things happen to go together. Or you could say the causality is reversed and that the proposed cause is actually in effect. So those are different ways you can problematize the correlation causation argument. To strengthen it, we could dismiss any of these things, or we could simply further tighten the relationship between the proposed cause and effect of these two correlated variables. And so in this case, strengthen and accept, we want to find the four that strengthen, eliminate them, and then whatever remains will be your answer. A lot of times with accept questions, people will forget halfway through that it's an accept question and then choose the strengthener. That's like choice D when you would have eliminated it had it been choice A. So you could write a little S next to each of those choices if you want to just not let yourself forget as a strategy. Could be useful. Anyway, anyone have thoughts on the correct answer for this one? B? Anyone else? Yeah, nice. It is B, in fact. B, I think, is actually kind of indicating that sunspots don't really matter that much in favor of the weather. And so that certainly is not helping. Did anyone find other choices to be tempting? Yeah? E? Sunspot activity is correlated with increases and decreases in the nutritional value of vegetation eaten by the hares. Well, what does that do in terms of relating sunspots to the hares?
I thought it made it seem like the vegetation was more of the cause than the sunspots.
Well, it's saying that sunspot is kind of like making it indirect, right? So like sunspots, then vegetation, then hares. Thought?
I thought A was just a little weird because it didn't necessarily talk about like a correlation. It just said like it increases when sunspot activity indirectly affects. So it just was like a lot of jargon, and then there was no mention of like reproductive things at first either. So it just like caught me off first.
Yeah, I hear you. I actually think A and E are kind of similar because they're both putting something in between the sunspots and the hares. E's putting the vegetation in the middle, A's putting reproduction in the middle. But they are both still saying sunspots, then this other thing, then affecting the hares. Even if it is indirect, it still is further associating them. And obviously it's not like hares are looking at sunspots and then knowing what to do. It's happening through these other indirect intermediate means. And so I think A and E are both helping the argument by showing us some means by which the sunspots could have an effect either way. And in a way, because they're both having equivalent effects, they can't both be right, so we could eliminate both on that basis alone. Yeah.
When I was solving this question, I actually went through and crossed out every answer choice that mentioned sunspots having any effect. Would you say that that's a reasonable first screening, or should I have been more detailed?
As a first pass, if you happen to see that 4 of them were mentioning sunspots having an effect and 1 not, that could be a good effect, but I think you'd probably have to go a little bit more in depth on it just to see sunspots and think through it a little bit. I think on an easier question or an easier exam, maybe, but on the LSAT, especially a number 16 like this, it's not going to be quite that simple. On the flip side, though, if you're looking at, for example, parallel questions, like we talked about, degrees of certainty and qualifiers and categories, that could be really useful, but those are also like descriptive adjectives, not like core concepts within the argument. Like many versus most versus all versus never, like all those things are useful tactics, but then when we're dealing with substance, I think you have to go deeper.